Namaste and welcome to Stardust Stereo. I'm Parker McPhinney. I'm your host. Today is the 25th of May, year 2026. Today is Memorial Day in the United States of America, so we will give a thank you to our veterans, to those who have sacrificed on multiple levels, and let us pray for the end of wars. I'm a pacifist and a forever optimist, hopeful that one day we can resolve our differences in a better way. However, looking at today's chart and what we're going to discuss doesn't give me immense confidence that this is going to happen right now. Today we have Mars square Pluto. This will become exact at 9 p.m. tonight, Pacific Daylight Time. It will be just after midnight if you live on the East Coast, the 26th. And this particular transit of Mars square Pluto is often considered a most cruel transit. It is a push to power. But we can also utilize this Mars square Pluto to push through to find our strength within, our internal power of how we transcend life's difficulties. It is a particular transit that when you see it in people of goodwill in their chart, they just keep on keeping on. And despite the obstacles, they do not give up. They have enormous perseverance. This Mars square Pluto indicates that your action, Mars's action, that's one of the key words, is blocked by power. Or there is an obstacle, a powerful obstacle, like a brick wall. It makes me remember how many situations in my lifetime I have seen that the obstacles just do not give an inch, and then suddenly a personal earthquake happens, and lo and behold, that wall crumbles, and you have freedom. And we also know that in the world, this has happened in situations where we never thought a wall would come tumbling. I think of Berlin. I pulled up a chart for when that wall fell in Berlin and freedom was found. Mars was in Scorpio, and Pluto was in Scorpio at that time. They were very wide in the degree from each other. But interestingly, Jupiter was in the same placement as it is today in the sign of Cancer. So every chart is different and unique, but sometimes we will see certain symbolisms that are repeated in various ways because astrology is quite complex. With this Mars in the sky in Taurus, squaring Pluto in the sky in Aquarius, we do have a similar energy of the collective growing weary, the collective being Pluto in Aquarius, the power of the people, the power of the collective against or struggling to find the compromise with those who rule with a fixed perspective and withhold resources that people need to live or increase the amount of the cost of living, which is another way of withholding. You know, you make gasoline's so expensive because of your desire to achieve some monumental war success or whatever is going on with that. And what it really comes down to with Mars square Pluto is this iron will, this fixed energy, because both Mars and Pluto are in fixed signs right now. So what we have specifically this weekend, or this week, because today's Monday, so this week, and as this particular transit is exact tonight, it will still continue to carry the energy. This is something a lot of people do not understand. It's a momentum, and it peaks, but we still feel and have the possibility to utilize this energy beyond the moment of when the exactitude takes place. Very rarely do massive major events transpire at partial moments. That's the moment of exactitude. Sometimes it happens, but not always. The stars are indicators of the potential. The people and their actions on the planet are what makes this energy force work for the good of all or for not so good possibilities. But then we also have the opportunity and the choice that we can somehow make lemonade out of those lemons. And people do. Because in hardship, people get immensely creative. So back to the Mars square Pluto and what I see for the individual, how they can utilize this very strong force. It is also dealing with unfulfilled desires because Mars is in Taurus. And we've been seeing a lot of news reports of people acting out in very violent ways. Underneath it is the frustration they feel because they don't have an answer or a solution to problems that are presented. And also some of these perpetrators of violence are immensely mentally imbalanced, do not have resources for good health mentally. Maybe they can't put food on the table. And this frustration gets acted out in an extremely negative way. Political unrest happens when the collective has decided it will take no more. And we are very much at this point here in the United States of America, but we're not alone. If you are a bodybuilder, utilizing Mars square Pluto is an excellent aspect to have in your chart because it shows that you have the potential to push through the pain to grow more muscle. That's a positive. If you have any planets at the degree of, we're going to give a little bit of width to either side of the degree. So at 3 to 7 of the sign Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, or Leo, you will feel this Mars square Pluto intensely. I would caution you to go in the realm of finding patience and not giving over to anger, not giving over to the negative expressions. Your ego will be tested with this particular transit. And we will see the ego energy act out in the political global realm as we find out whether or not the strait is reopened. There is a certain unwillingness to move the goalposts. That's the Mars square Pluto, an unwillingness to compromise. I do, however, believe last week in June, possibility to find a solution to this particular war that we are experiencing, that started out with America helping Israel against Iran. For me, the bottom line is there's human beings that are being harmed. Very rarely do the actual government officials get harmed. So know that Mars will trigger the power issues. Use your energy in a positive way. Try your very best not to get locked into ego wars. Mars is in Taurus, so an excellent use of this Mars square Pluto would be completely redoing the garden, digging up and out old dead wood, or trimming back and pruning to make your place or your potted plants gorgeous. Another suggestion I have is back up your devices. This is a classic indicator of a digital hack in the banking global system. This is a transit that indicates impersonal relationships. It's important that you not let the group or society cast an overriding impression on personal choices that you make in your relationship. So what if society does not approve of your choices? It's your life. You don't have to wait for society to give you approval if what you know you're doing in your heart is correct. If we think back in all the years, decades of when particular relationships were frowned on in society, not acceptable, and now nobody blinks. I mean, when I was growing up, nobody lived together. That was like, oh my God, you're living in sin? And now if you say, oh, I'm moving in with my boyfriend, nobody even bats an eyelash. I mean, I personally dealt with this. I did live with somebody and it wasn't approved by society or his employment. So when my friends wanted to call, they would have to call, ring twice, hang up, and call back. That was the only way I would answer the phone. This was clearly before cell phones, way before cell phones, because I didn't want my boyfriend to get fired. Nobody's doing this now unless they are, well, actually, they may be doing this now because the crazy man in the White House is bent on causing great suffering. So we have to be careful if we are from another country, or even if you're born here, you can't be too careful. That man's nuts. But soon he will not be president. And I do believe it's sooner than you think. I do believe this week his powers are going to be tightened a little bit. Perhaps they will put a handcuff on one of his wrists so he can't use it. This particular Mars square Pluto, he will feel very deeply, because in his chart, the Mars square Pluto will take place in the 9th house of other countries, and the Pluto is in his 6th house of health. When you have Pluto in the 6th house, you have to transform how you take care of your body. I'm not so secure that he has a healthy diet, and just the stress alone that he creates would give a younger man a heart attack. Jupiter in the sky is just about this week to conjunct his birth Saturn in the 11th house. That's why I believe Congress is on some level going to rein in. But if he feels like he won, then we'll be okay, because that's the most important thing to him, how he looks to the rest of the world. Jupiter is also in conjunct to his moon, so the adjustment actually might be on his spending spree with remodeling of the White House. But I don't want to talk anymore about him. The Mars square Pluto is also an indicator of a banking crisis. It is possible that as the Sun trines Pluto in the sky, the Speaker of the House has some clever and useful ideas to help our economy, or in some way makes suggestions that better the life of average Americans. As Jupiter conjuncts the USA Mercury, which is retrograde, which will happen within the next week or so, creative solutions to the AI issues, and we're going to see the vice president in the news. It also will deal with electricity, computer energy, and hopeful information, hopeful ideas of how to better our lives. I think key dates for the USA are June 5th through the 8th. Then also the last week in June with a hopeful outlook that the war will end. The New York Stock Exchange is specifically activated with this Mars square Pluto because Mars is conjunct its Venus in its birth chart. I think it's going to be a bit of a downturn, or some hidden event makes a market adjustment. A hidden event then creates an adjustment in the market. Perhaps it might be a positive event. Some hidden positive event comes to light, and there is a correction. Clearly, we know if the war ends, the market's going to just take off in a big way. America's south node, United States of America's south node, is activated by this Pluto-Mars square, with Pluto almost conjunct the south node in the 4th house. The south node is the past, so this is a karmic coming around, karmic energy coming around. With Mars in the USA's 7th, the public is outraged. Something with public funds or how money has been used or is used will be coming to light. That's another thing with America. The global situation is struggling because the lack of being able to get goods. This Mars in Taurus is called by me the peaceful warrior. Taurus is all about love and fertility, art, creativity, compassion, comfort. Mars in Taurus means our actions or our energies go toward that. Hey, how can I get some relief and some comfort? And where's the good food? And how are the cows doing? I think of cows definitely as a Taurus symbolism there, the milk. If you eat meat, I don't eat meat, but if you eat meat, the nourishment from the cows definitely would come under this Mars energy in Taurus. That Mars square Pluto can indicate a powerful earthquake. The countries I see in the spotlight in the next 2 weeks: Israel, Iran, Cuba, Canada, the New York Stock Exchange, like I mentioned, and of course, the United States of America. LA is dealing with a complete change. LA just had their Pluto return because LA has Pluto in Aquarius. So this Mars square Pluto in Los Angeles' chart, Pluto's in the 4th. In the sky, Pluto's in the 4th, and they just had their return. And then Mars is in the 7th. Mars in the sky just triggered LA's Pluto, in addition to being in a dance with Pluto in the sky. The sun is moving to trine several planets in LA's chart, and that will be helpful. Who's going to win the race? I'm not going to make a prediction on that, but I love Katie Porter, and I'm voting for her. I think I may do a short podcast on who may win the governorship of California. The chemical meltdown that's happening in Orange County is symbolic of this Mars square Pluto. So California is basically a mess, you know. The good news is the sun is just about to trine the Pluto in the sky. Mars in Taurus, its co-collaborator, as I will call it, is Venus in Cancer, which is the nurturing sign. And Venus just made a lovely aspect to Mars, kind of giving a little bit of a relief, opening a valve and a release, kind of like the steam that went out of the leak of the chemical plant. So there's always a little bit of relief. Sometimes we have to work really hard to discover where that is. But I am a firm believer that because the moon changes signs every 2.5 days, what is disastrous today might be completely different in 48 hours. And if you keep that in mind and hang on to the nurturing energy that you give yourself and the ones that you love, then you make it through these difficult, dark times. It's not, is the glass half full or half empty? It's, do you have a glass at all? And if you have a glass, be thankful. And if you don't have a glass, you have your hand, and you can use your hand as a cup. It might not be a great solution, but think about it. Before the potter ever made the first cup, man used its hand. He dipped it into the creek and drank the water. We will always find solutions to our problems as long as we keep the attitude positive. I'm Parker McPhinney. This is Stardust Stereo. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd like to thank my patrons. You know who you are. And if you'd like to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/ParkerMcP. And I want to remind you, you are made of stardust. So go shine.